how many of you have heard of Pathways? Has anybody logged on to Pathways and done anything in that system? And if you haven't, it's not a bad thing. I just want to have a sense of where things are at. So the best way for me to explain Pathways in my version is, I see that Kathy has the, and if you want to hand me your Competent Communicator, these two. Kathy has these two books, The Competent Communicator and The Competent Leader. And basically Pathways is the online version, the cloud version that's going to replace these manuals and all of the advanced manuals. So there's Toastmasters.org, which is the same as always with all of its information. And then there's another part of it, it's called Basecamp. So you'll hear me talking about Basecamp. Basecamp is where this material resides. And so that's the best way for me to explain Pathways. It does not change any format of your meeting. It doesn't, all it changes is the way the online or the learning is done. The reason for the switch to Pathways is because they wanted a more robust program. And so the new Pathways, there's 10 paths and we'll go through it. They actually are very tailored to what your individual needs are. And so it can be, my path is actually presentation mastery, and then there's coaching and leadership. And so they really have made a more robust way for us to be able to continue to learn. And it also includes things like blogging and webinars. So it's kind of more turn of the age type of thing for the stuff that people are doing now. And my goal, and that's why I had the computer here, is actually I'm going to go through some slides, but then I'm going to walk you through my Basecamp, because to me that makes the best sense so that everybody kind of has some sense of what this really means. Please ask questions as we go. This all builds on itself, and so I'm very fine with questions as we go. And I do want you to know that I support Mabel, and I also support Lisa, your Vice President of Education. I will continue to support this club for another 15 weeks or so. So they have the ability to be on a phone call with me once a week where your questions can be, you can ask your questions via email or in the club setting to Lisa, and then she can get those to me, and then I can get answers. I can't guarantee you that I know the answers because I'm learning also. I don't have much of a jump start on you, but I do have a list of like 600 questions on the master log, and I've read most of them, and so we'll get the answers. And so we'll work together through this. And the thing that's most important is for you to understand that this is not like a one and done. I'm going to leave here and it's like good luck. You know, it's very much very supported. And I just want to add for Josh and Kathy, who is now starting into the books, this is really got some powerful things to it. And so I'm really excited about what it is. So I'm going to go relatively quickly through the first few slides just because we only have about an hour, and I want to tailor it to my version more so than what Toastmasters had. I want to be able to get through to be able to log into my Basecamp, and that's kind of something that I've added. So Pathways, I'm going to skip through the videos. And so for those that are new, Ralph Smedley is who started Toastmasters, and this tells you where our manuals have been. And so this has been a culmination. Thank you, Mabel. Thank you. And so this is where the manuals have evolved over time. And so again, now these manuals will basically go away, and then we're going to have an online format. There's two things to that. One is there is still a print version on the Pathways. So if you have someone that does, I found this in rural areas, that they have challenges with internet, then they can do the print version. Then Toastmasters actually mails you the documents, and then you can go through it kind of like you would a manual. The only thing with that is if you do the print documents or the print format, it's about half of the amount of Pathways, and so there's a little bit of a limitation. And you can also run both the Competent Communicator and Competent Leader in your other manuals and the Pathways simultaneously. You can't double dip though. So if you're going to work in Pathways, and this is my speech today, so I'm giving my speech for my icebreaker and pathways, I can't log that into my my manual speech also. So you can't just double dip in that way. And it's important to add that the competent communicator and competent leader with pathways basically have been combined. And so your roles that you have during a meeting, if you're Toastmaster or general evaluator or you're evaluating, those are actually part of your path and part of your project. So within each path there's projects, and so it kind of all comes together as one. And so you'll still track all of your meeting roles and those types of things also. Now, if you started after, so like Josh, if you started after October 31st, it's a requirement to go straight into the Pathways program. Those of you that started any time before that, there is a couple-year transition period. And so basically when the last club in Toastmasters, and they're starting to go international now, when the last club launches the Pathways program, then there's a 2-year window. And then in that 2-year window, there's a transition. And then after that point, then the manuals are still there and you could always use them, but the designations kind of become a little obsolete.
And is this something you're going to go on later to show us that timeline so we can kind of get an anticipation of what that looks like? Are we one of the first clubs? Are we one of the last clubs?
You're in the middle.
In the middle?
Yep, you're in the middle. So, I mean, realistically, in the spring, they'll have all the clubs out. So you're talking probably 2 years from this spring.
2020 spring we're looking at?
Yeah, probably somewhere around there. I mean, don't quote me, but yeah.
Just an idea.
Yeah, and I think what's important, especially for leadership, is if someone chooses to go to Pathways or someone chooses to use the manuals, there's not a penalty to the club. And I'm going to show you, they give you distinguished club points, and they basically have a blended version so you can get credit for both. So if you're close to being done with one of your manuals, I would recommend finishing. I mean, obviously that's to have your CC or CL or whatever your advanced manual, that's an important distinction. And so if you're starting out brand new, it may be wise to go to Pathways, especially if you don't think you're gonna be done with your manual in 2 years, because the only challenge is the work you do in the manuals can't be put onto your Pathways. So although you have all the experience, it's not gonna benefit you from a designation perspective. So you I think that it would be good for you to talk to members, like talk to Kathy Mabel, and talk to her about what is the right way to do and and kind of in a way as a club have a strategy for how to answer those questions. And again, that's where I'll continue to support Lisa also and be able to, I have a sense of what other clubs are doing and how they're seeing it. And so this will be an ongoing conversation. And this really is more of a sense to be able to get us grounded in what this is. But yeah, I'm going to skip through some of this. So it is very tailored. You have flexibility to choose it all, to choose your experience. You have a lot more access to materials. So the cloud version gives you a ton of access to a lot of tutorials, to the different, all of the things that are involved with Pathways. And the important thing is it's going to be continuing to evolve. And so as we evolve, it'll continue to evolve and they'll add content and those things. I'm going to skip through that. So for those of you that don't know, these are the 5 core competencies or core values of Toastmasters. These are the 10 paths. And so I won't go through each one right now. I'm going to leave Mabel with this. I've printed out basically this sheet here, and then I've also printed out a sheet that has each path, and it has what the different levels, each path has 5 levels and what the projects are. So then you can have a visual of, okay, what does this really look like? I think even though I do like computers, I think sometimes I still like to have visuals. And then also I'm going to email this to either Mabel or to Lisa, and there's that and a couple of other documents that I'm going to have her then send out to the group, because this is really nice and color coded in that, and I think it's nice to have a tangible something to hold on to say what Because when you get into this, you're going to have some sense and be like, oh, what is this even, what's involved? And so I will pass that along also. And so the reason why the numbers are up here and then and Lisa, can you see okay? Is that the number up there relates back to its core value or core competency. And the number 5 is gray because all of them give us confidence. So each project, so basically within each path, you have different levels. So there's 5 levels for each path. And then within each level, you have projects. So you can see here, the icebreaker, evaluation and feedback, and researching and presenting is the first 3 projects for level 1. Every path starts with an icebreaker, but don't think of it in terms of this is my first time standing up here giving my first speech. This is really an icebreaker into this particular path. And so it's much more rigorous than what would be your, quote, first speech in an icebreaker. For those that have been around for a while, I don't want them to think, oh gosh, now I got to do an icebreaker again. I mean, it's really designed to help you. And so then you'll complete those 3 projects, and so one of them is evaluation and feedback, and so that is a role. So your role as an evaluator, you're doing that, and then researching and presenting is another speech. And so icebreaker is you kind of giving a speech up here, and you're giving your speech, and again it's tailored around the information on your path, and then you'll do kind of a role, and then you'll do researching and presenting, which will be another speech. And so all of this is a combination of a number of speaking responsibilities, role requirements, etc. And then as it builds on itself, they have more and more projects that are required. What I think is important here is, I'm going to wait on that. Does this make sense so far? Okay. So there's actually 59 total projects. Within Toastmasters, or within Toastmasters.org, where you go to Basecamp. Again, Basecamp is basically where the cloud version is. Is this Lisa? Jerry. Well, feel free to join us over here. Yeah, you're fine. I'm Nathan, and I'm talking about pathways today, trying to not bore people. I have to say I didn't create the content. So within Basecamp, and again, Basecamp is important for you to realize, again, when you go into Toastmasters.org, you go to Basecamp, and Basecamp is where you find all of your education transcript, all of your stuff. Within that, you also receive badges and awards. So each level you get an award. You get a badge and an award. So level 1, when you're done with level 1, then you technically, like my path is presentation mastery. So when I get through level 1, then I will be Nathan Hickman, PM 1. So presentation mastery 1. And then it would be PM 2, etc. And then when you get to the level 5, you would be presentation master. And so that's what the new designations will look like. Keep in mind that you carry your CC, you carry all of those designations, and that's up to the club to decide how you want that to be on name tags and cards and all of those. I mean, that's nothing that'll ever be taken away. But that's will be the new version will be. And that's one of the reasons for the Pathways program is really a small percentage of people that join Toastmasters get through the CC. And so this is a way for leadership as to be able to reward people more regularly and hopefully inspire them to want to continue on. And I just also want to add as an aside for leadership that I think this is a good program to be able to sell this to corporations and to bring in members, because the way it's tailored and designed really can give good skills to people from in the workforce. And so I think that there's a lot of leverage that can happen from a marketing perspective because of the corporate, the training involved with that. You can also give personal badges. And so the 4 on the bottom, the kind of brain with the gears and the snowflake. So I can actually go on there and I can say, Mabel, how did I do today? And I can ask for feedback. And Mabel can send me feedback and say, Nathan, you did okay today. And, or whatever she wants to say. And then you can also send these badges as encouragement. So if you have newer members or you want to kind of inspire someone a little bit or motivate them, I think all of this is really just important for us to have this little bit of recognition, because obviously it's scary to be up here and it's scary to do all of this. And so if we can kind of celebrate some, and I think this gives us a layer to be able to do it individually. That's not just the quote club leadership also. So you can do that as members. You can also print your certificates from there. You will get all of them emailed, and then you can print them. The club then can also print those and then have them to stand up and hand those out. There are also Pathways pins for when the first people get through levels. And all of that I will be sharing with Mabel when we leave. The one thing that has changed as far as the meeting perspective is the evaluations. The evaluations are still going to be done, but they have a new format. And so basically what they've done is they've come up with this format. They wanted a more robust evaluation. They find that the research showed that they find that people are either too warm and fuzzy and great, everything's wonderful, or maybe they don't really have enough content. And so this, it's objective because it's got numbers, then it gives you something a little bit more to work off of. Keep in mind that there is also a key on the back of it. So when you print your evaluation out, it actually talks about, what does a 1 mean, what does a 5 mean. Again, keeping in mind this is a 5-point scale, so 3 is average. What I want you to know and to keep in mind is the evaluations. I think the best way to handle that is if you're given a speech, is for you to come prepared with your evaluation. And you'll see when I go through this how you can go into base camp and get all of that. But I think that's going to be the best way, because all of these evaluations are tailored around that path, that project. And so we'll want to, I think it's best practice, so that way if someone comes in and they're not here that day and someone's filling in last minute, then you know that you have it covered. And you also can scan these as a PDF, and you can load your evaluations into your base camp. So 5 years from now, you can look back and say, oh, gee, I didn't, you can kind of see where your progression has come. And you can also fill these evaluations out online, and so they're PDF fillable. And so for me, who I have really shaky hands, I'm happy because sometimes I don't do evaluations that well because I can't write. So this is, I think, a good version to be able to do that. You don't have to have technology in the club. All of this can be printed out and brought in. You don't have to have access, but if you want to have that as part of it, that's there also.
So what you're saying, okay, let me try that right.
Yep.
You're doing an evaluation, you can do it on the computer as opposed to writing it all out? Is that what
You can. It's a PDF. It's a form that's a PDF fillable form.
Okay, so you can, if you had a laptop,
Mm-hmm.
you can start.
Yes,
Okay.
and then you could email that to the person, and then they could save it and attach it to their base camp or whatever they wanted to do with it. You don't have to put your evaluation on base camp.
Okay.
And your evaluation is yours. You're the speaker is who gets the evaluation, and that's the one. This is not something that's held in some secret file and that, but it's really. Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay.
It does.
So there's also a mentor program, and this may seem a little bit too soon for this, but obviously I don't support this club forever, although I will if there's questions. I'll be glad to answer questions anytime, but it would be nice to have someone who wants to step into this role that is basically being the mentor for the new members coming in and can be a guide. I mean, we're all brand new at this. We all are starting at square zero, and so a mentor program is actually a track in base camp, and so they actually you actually get credit for it. You get credit towards your DTM, and it's a guided project, just like, and you'll see when you get into My Base Camp, it's a guided project that you would do that basically gives you the skills to be a Pathways mentor. And again, I will continue to talk to Lisa and or Mabel, whoever that ends up being, about what more that is. But I want that to be in the back of your mind, because you're going to see when you log into Base Camp, you'll have your path and you're going to have Pathways Mentor. That doesn't mean you have to do Pathways Mentor, but that's on everybody's Base Camp. So getting started, and so I'm going to walk through these few slides and then I'm going to actually go into My Base Camp. So the slides that you see here are a little bit different than when I go into My Base Camp, because Toastmasters has now updated the website again. So there was several hoops you had to jump through a little bit to get into Pathways, and now they've streamlined it. And so it's a little bit different, but basically everything you see will be the same. So when you go to Toastmasters.org, then you'll see on the top toolbar, you'll see something that says Pathways. And so when you go to Pathways, then what you do is you're going to actually start your learning experience. And so you can, they have the Navigator online. And so the Navigator, for like Josh as a new member, you can read it online, and then there's also a print version that the club will have. It talks about all of the roles that are involved with Toastmasters. And so it really spells out what a meeting is, what it looks like. It's not required, but if you're new to Toastmasters, I would recommend going through that to have a better sense of that. And again, the club will have a paper copy that people can show for new members. But then the first thing you're going to do is you're going to choose your path. And so you're going to go to choose your path, and then you have to make a decision. So when you get to this place, it says, it's hard to read that a little, but you can say purchase Base Camp or purchase printed materials. So keep in mind the first path is free, just like your Competent Communicator. After that, it'll be $20 a path. The printed version is free for the first path. There is a $25 shipping charge. They send that out as in two sections. They send you level 1, level 2, and then level 3, level 4, level 5. And we can talk about that individually with people that want to join in the printed version. Keep in mind that right now when you come into Toastmasters, your membership, you're paying an extra $20 for your club enrollment, and that goes towards your CC manual. So they're not tacking on extra charges. This is it's just shown a little bit differently. But then also when you get to more advanced manuals, then that starts to be where people are purchasing those manuals and stuff. And so really the cost is not changed. So for Base Camp, you'll choose if you want to do Base Camp or if you want to do printed materials. And one thing to add to that is when you go in to purchase your path, it feels like you're buying something because it is a shopping cart. And so it's kind of like being on Amazon. And so you'll get there, you'll choose your path, you'll check out. There should be all zeros. If there's not, I would ask, because that's a problem. But keep in mind, I just want to name that, as it may feel weird to basically, well, I'm getting this for free. Why am I actually going to a shopping cart and checking out? And there's a whole process where you check out, and then you get an email from Toastmasters that says what your path is, and then they